the From Stands to Sidelines podcast, a podcast by coaches for coaches. Today, I'd like to welcome you to Extra Time, our series of shorter pods where we explore key football news, transfers, fixtures and tournaments. On this series, we will try to frame all the current football stories through the coaching lens. Thank you for joining us. We really do hope you enjoy it. Today, the title is the Southgate Review, and we're going to analyse Gareth Southgate's tenure at England. We are fresh in the news that he has resigned as England manager 2 days after the final defeat against Spain at Euro 24. So, boys, after the news, what are you feeling? Are you positive? Are you negative? What's your thoughts and feelings? Keane, we'll start with you.
I'll keep it short and sweet to start with, but I think ultimately, to be completely honest with you, I'm devastated. You look at his record, you look at the things he's done to unite this nation, and get us falling back in love with England. Excited to go and watch England in major finals, in major tournaments. He's brought that excitement back for everyone, like I say, and me as a fan going to watch the games, I've enjoyed it so much more. And even as a coach, looking at the way he is with his players, looking at the way he sets up, I find it really interesting, and the way he's driven the results out of this group over the past 8 years has been second to none, and better in any other comparison when you look at any other manager previous of England in the past.
I'm kind of in the same boat, really. I think, and this is gonna make you boys laugh, as the older and experienced person within the group, I remember the time when
1966.
Yeah, I remember 1966.
He was back in his 30s.
Back in his prime days.
I just remember a squad of like players like Lampard, Gerrard, that were all these really big, like important players, and they never performed for their country. You just never really saw it, and you never really got excited about it, and you just knew what was happening. And the other thing as well that you don't really remember is that none of them sang the national anthem, really. They're all quite quiet. They don't. And you watch now, and you know what, I was watching the final when our national anthem was played at the start of the game, and you see all of our players proudly like shouting out the anthem. That's something that I don't remember seeing before Southgate. And I think that kind of culture is something that he has built and he's brought through the 21s. Like, you've got to remember people like Palmer, Gordon in the first team now were in that 21 squad before. And I think to get those players through, and granted, Gordon didn't really play, Palmer was on for 30 minutes maybe. I think to recognise that and the fact that they've all come through is a really important part. But I do think that Southgate going now, and I think I messaged you boys and said it, is that it's 2 days after the final. Gareth is doing what Gareth does best, and he's protecting that group of players again. Because now that he's done it 2 days after a final, no chance of anyone saying anything about performances, criticising the players, criticising what's happened. Because that's what would happen. If he hadn't announced this now and left it a week or two, there would be criticism about players, about tactics, about did the players perform, did the players do this. That'll stop now. That won't happen, because everyone will be saying Southgate well done. Everyone will be looking for who's next. This tournament will now get forgotten in a way. And I think that kind of sums up the kind of manager that we had, really. So, yeah. But equally, I think he has admitted that he's gone, right, I've got us to finals, I just can't do that next step. And hopefully, whoever takes over can make that next step, because they've been given a great platform, great players, great team philosophy. So it would be great to see who's next and if they can make that one extra step.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie to you, boys. You've said everything I've wanted to say, so I don't really know what I can add. I just echo both of your words. I mean, it's just whoever comes in next. I think that's the real big one. I think the FA have to get someone that's on side with the fans. Can't get in someone that the fans are going to be like annoyed about. It has to be the right one to take us to the World Cup. But what you boys said, exactly the same. And I know the next one will have a different stance.
Here we go.
But,
right, get ready.
In one sense, it is sad to see Southgate go. Like, he's done a lot for this country, and hearing interviews today, like the amount of patriotism he's actually brought back to our team, of everyone is proud to play for England. It's not a case of we have different fractions, that everyone is together and we're all in it together. But I'm on the lines of, I think it was the right time. I think it's a prime time for him to leave on a high, because I felt that if it went on one more tournament, potentially we're looking at his reputation being tarnished, and especially someone that's taken us so far. And to be fair, he's dealt with a lot. I think he's dealt with a lot of expectation that's been unneeded, in the sense of us English fans, we feel we have a God-given right to expect that we're going to win something. The only time we won something, it was in 1966. Like, that was like 2 generations away from us. Like, it does baffle me that people think that we have a God-given right, but people think we have a God-given right to win stuff, and it's like, no, at the end of the day, you see that we're building towards something, and I think Southgate going allows someone to put their imprint on it, but also you've got a squad that is quite young, and I think it was quite nice to see Southgate has had his time and be able to bring through players through his generation, and then whichever manager comes in next can at least imprint in there. But on the whole, I think it is a sad day for English football, because at the end of the day, the England DNA is obviously based off of what Southgate's done. Now, obviously, with someone new coming in, how the FA approached that with the way they go about the philosophy for all England teams going forwards, whether they keep it the same or whether they try and align it with the new manager, that still begs the question. But it is sad, but I also feel that it is the right time. So that's where I stand on it. Don't get me wrong, there has been times in the tournament that I have questioned the decisions, and I think at the end of the day, in this country, when a World Cup or Euros is on, there's millions of England coaches, in the sense of we all feel that we could probably do a better job than the manager. A bit like when we criticise politicians and other people, we're all gonna have opinions on it. But at the end of the day, it's his decision that is the final one, and we also just have to be like, actually, we don't all get it right. He's human too. So
I think for me, ultimately, people are going to have opinions. People are going to be divided, and people are going to have a lot of things to say over the course of an international tournament, over a course of so many years. You know, when someone's in charge for so long, they can't do everything right. You can't do everything right for 8 years, like Southgate's been in charge for now. You know, you can't do everything right for so long and expect to get no criticism at all. Like, you're of course you're going to get that criticism. You're going to get moments where you go through a rough patch and whatever. But ultimately, it comes down to you look back to previous years growing up. I've never been massively like as much as I have been since the 2018 World Cup, engaged with England and loved watching England as much as I have over the last few years, because ultimately the managers before that, the group of players that we've had, they haven't been able to get that culture right within the group. That togetherness of the nation hasn't been as it has over the last few years. And ultimately, it's been a divided country in terms of support for the nation. You know, a lot of people would turn around to you and go, you know, I don't really care about watching England. England to be on the telly and no one to be watching it. You know, Gareth's got the nation to that point where we've got that unity back. Everyone's getting together, watching England games, whether it's an international tournament or not, whether it's a qualifying game against San Marino, whether it's a final against Spain in the European Championships. People are there and watching it together because they love the culture that it's created, not just in and around the camp that's produced performances and results at the highest level, but the social unity that it's brought to people that, you know, the fans and upcoming coaches and upcoming players that look and now they want to be all these top stars. You see, how many people do we coach each week? How many Bellingham shirts do we see now? How many Foden shirts do we see? And ultimately, Southgate has been the man that has brought that back to England. And, you know, that's where I stand on this. And the record speaks for itself. The record just, you know, two finals, a semi-final and a quarter final in his tournaments. You know, no manager, arguably than Sir Alf Ramsey, and especially since then, has been as successful. What's that?
We all used to dream about that. You used to watch England and like, oh, imagine we got to a final. Oh, imagine we got, and like, but you'd be watching it, and you see us like struggle in the group stage.
Yeah.
See us. I remember. I think it was World Cup in Brazil when we had Costa Rica,
Italy, and Uruguay,
and Slovenia.
Yeah, and you look at that and you go,
did we not play Slovenia at one point? Can't remember.
Must be 2018.
You used to look at that group and you used to go, nah, we're losing to Italy, we're losing to Uruguay, and let's be honest, Costa Rica are probably just gonna walk past us anyway. And now you look at our groups and you go, nah, you got a chance. There was a time when you probably look at the group we had in the Euros, like with Denmark, and you look at that and probably go, nah, Denmark we don't win. And now you're looking at it going, no, we win that, we go through. But without the majority of people are doing that. Whereas before the joke used to be, oh yeah, we either make it through the group stage, we get Germany next, and Germany take us out. And the Euros in England in 2021, we beat Germany. Like, that would have been enough. Like that was enough to get people really excited about stuff previously.
We also won a semi-final at Wembley as well against Denmark. Let's not forget as well.
Yeah, I'm not saying anything else, but I'm saying the things that we always used to say, like you always used to watch England and go, it'd be good if we did, but we won't.
Oh,
and
ultimately,
now we start to look at it.
Sorry, yeah, one thing we haven't had over them years is consistency. We haven't had the consistency. With 2008, with our so-called golden generation that we had back then, we didn't qualify for the tournament. At other stages, like you say, in Brazil, we didn't even qualify for the last 16. You know, there's been times where we've been so inconsistent with such a good squad. You've got to remember, we had arguably some of them players earn a place in probably the best Premier League, in like history of the Premier League. Like they'd earned themselves in a historic 11 of the Premier League. We had a Ballon d'Or winner in there as well. You know, there's the players we've had over the years. People seem to forget that, you know, managers haven't always got the consistency out of those players that Gareth Southgate's managed to have. And to have that on the international stage at the highest level after playing a 60-game club season is so difficult. It's so difficult to get them levels out of them all the time when you have to play 7 games over a period of 4 or 5 weeks. You know, I think it's unrealistic to expect to play at your very best for the whole period of a tournament. You know,
100%.
Go on then, James. Go on.
So, for me, I think the way I look at Southgate's tenure is a total transformation a total transformation of what it means to play for England and what it means to support England. You know, beforehand, if we got knocked out of a tournament, there were riots in the street, there's the burning effigies, the cars on fire. Do you see that now? No, you don't. It felt different every time we got knocked out of a competition, maybe bar the quarterfinal of the World Cup, but every time other than that, it felt different. It felt proud. It felt proud not to lose, but to get as far as we did. And I think that is one of the transformations we've seen. And I think from within the squad, he's transformed what it means to play for England, because people used to see it as a chore. You know, they weren't getting paid. They would turn up. They wouldn't really enjoy it. They wouldn't really want to do it. A lot of them, they'd be bossed about and they'd sit in their factions. The teams from Manchester would all sit together. The teams from London would all sit together and they wouldn't get on. They didn't like each other. Now you look at that squad, those players love to play alongside each other. They do. And they play all across the world now. They play all across the world and all across the Premier League. And they love playing together. They are one.
You got the likes of Jude Bellingham from Birmingham taking pictures with the Aston Villa players. Like you say,
crazy.
Imagine.
And I think that is Gareth Southgate's man management, and which is, for me, his best ability and quality is his honesty, his brutal honesty, and his openness. He's transparent, and I think he's done that not only to the players but to the nation. And I think it's important to look at the work he did off the pitch as well. He wrote an open letter, Dear England, once about the racism that the players suffered. And I just think nobody else is brave enough to stand up like that, like he did, represent his players in the manner in which he did. And he stood up for a whole group of people, despite all the talk, all the pressure, all the headlines. He stood up for them when it mattered, because that's who he is. And he has absolutely transformed that. And he's brought ownership and buy-in from all the fans. And then you look at the other achievements. You know, we talk about where he's got us in the tournaments, in the finals, and the semi-finals, the quarterfinals. That's huge. That's huge. And we haven't seen that. And in our lifetimes, we haven't seen that. But for me, one of the other things is the penalty curse. He broke the penalty curse. We couldn't do it. We couldn't win one. He broke that. He changed the game. He changed the game completely. And you spoke, Luke, earlier about how he's brought players up from the youth. And I think one case I would put forward is Bukayo Saka. Now, he had him in the youth squads for England. And the second he took over at England, he brought him through. He brought him through. And that was his belief in people. That's what strikes me with Gareth, is he believes in people, regardless of who they are, how old they are. He believes in them. And he brought Saka in at such a young age. And we've seen what he's done for England. He has done some marvellous things for England. And his support for him hasn't wavered.
Finals.
Yeah. And his support hasn't wavered for him. He missed the penalty, but he's still going strong. He comes on the next tournament and he scores the penalty. And I think that is absolutely huge. And for me, I think it's so important to recognise all the different things we've done and why we have this God-given right, and why people can't seem to understand just how marvellous what he's done is. He's the first manager to bring us to a final on foreign soil ever at England. That's a massive achievement, And all these things just seem to get swept under the carpet. And I don't understand that personally.
Boys, I've got a question for you. On Twitter, I've been seeing people say, "Oh, but the reason we didn't, or the reason he's gone is because he's reached his limit. The finals is the limit. He's never going to take us to win it." What do you boys think? Do you think that is his limit, or do you think he could have, World Cup?
I think he could
Definitely
have.
not.
I think he could, but I think partly, and obviously I don't know, I'm just assuming, but I think partly he has, the fact he's chosen to go is partly due to the fact that he is so passionate about the country that he's kind of going, look, I've got what I can do. I've got us to these finals, and I can't get that final step. And I do think that is part of it. He's kind of gone, look, I want us to get there, but I just don't think
I don't think I'm the man for it.
he can get that one little step.
See, this is a thing, right?
Step, really.
You look at that squad, and you look at how far he's taken it with some of those players. Look at the type of player that, John Stones was on the verge of falling off a cliff for England and Man City. Yes, Pep Guardiola has played a big part in that, right? But Gareth Southgate has almost given him free rein at England, to be that leader. I know Harry Kane's got the armband, but if you watch him on the pitch, you watch him in the training videos, he's a leader, and he's turned him into that. And, you look at players like Maguire, and like you say, with Saka, with the young players that he's brought through, Declan Rice. All of these players now, you're looking at Rice, you're looking at Saka, you're looking at Stones, you're thinking all of these are like, they're up there. They're all world class. They're all world class players. All right. And then you've got the other end of the spectrum, the players that are coming through the youth at their clubs and stuff like that. And he's taken a risk on bringing Shaw, who hasn't played since February, which for me was a good decision. I think he played very well in the final. And played a massive part in changing the game when he came on against the Netherlands. And then even bringing the youngsters like Mainu, trusting Walton, and Mainu to have a massive role in the side. He could have easily also have played Dunk at centre back with John Stones, but he's gone with Gurhey, who I think is an unbelievable player, by the way. But these players now are coming into their prime years. And in 2 years' time, you think, where could they be at in terms of their performances for their clubs, where they could be for England? All right. In 2 years' time, we could be talking about Gurhey as a Real Madrid player, as a Champions League winner. Because at the moment, he's on Real Madrid's radar. And Gareth Southgate has given him that platform to go and progress. But you look at, like I say, you look at the players that he's done it with, all these youngsters that are coming through. You think where they could be and where we could be as a footballing nation come 2026. Because I think right now, if you was to give that squad a couple of years, they go through the qualifying stages, they go through the Nations League or whatever, and they get a lot of games under their belts together as a group, and you never know what could happen in America, because I genuinely believed after that final, I sat there and sat there and thought to myself, you keep him in either the World Cup or the next Euros is going to be our one. And I was almost certain that if Southgate would stay in the job, that we could go and win in America. Genuinely believe that.
I just reckon we have a chance now, to be fair. Looking at the squad that we got, depends on who we get in. Like, as long as we hit the ground running, we've got the players, just need everything else around it. There's nothing stopping us doing so.
But this is a thing. We go back to what James said earlier about his man management. Do you know, because a lot of the names that are being thrown in the mix, we know a lot about already, because they're already either in clubs or someone like Graham Potter who's not, or Frank Lampard that hasn't been in a job for a while. All right. How many of them, man management wise, would you say are as good as Gareth Southgate?
None.
I think none of them.
I think it's important, Keane, that you mentioned that. And I think actually his man management, so this is sort of tied into your question, Matt, is do you think he thought he maybe couldn't take us that extra step? No, I don't think so. I think he believes in his heart that he can take us there. And I'm sure he believes that, because he wouldn't have stayed on, I don't think, if he didn't believe up till this point. So for me, I think what he's done again is something that Luke alluded to earlier, is that man management. He's taken that off the players by stepping down. I think he's prevented the narrative that we're going to go into the next tournament and everyone's going to say we can't win because we've got Gareth Southgate, and that's what it's going to be like. That will be the narrative. Oh, it's Gareth again. We're not going to get to we might get to the final, but we won't win it because we've got Gareth Southgate and he can't win and he can't get that far. And so I think for me, the reason he stepped down more than anything is to take that narrative away from the players. I think he's protecting his players and saying, look, I might have to sacrifice myself for this, but those boys aren't going to go into that tournament with the we can't win attitude, because you do end up absorbing it. If you see it and you hear it all the time in the media and from the fans and all the time, constantly, and there's that pressure, everyone's going to think that, and you start to absorb it as a player, I'm sure. And I think that's why he stepped down. I don't think he doubts his ability to go that one step further, as I certainly don't. I think he could get us there without a shadow of a doubt. And I think it was a case of the players need to believe it, and that's why he stepped down.
You say about man management, and just thinking about it now, was it the Euros in 21 where the pictures were going around of all the players on inflatable unicorns in the pool?
Yes.
I think there was that even. There
No,
might have
I
even
think
been
it was
2018.
2018.
Was it 20? Yeah.
Was it?
Okay. Like, what other manager has done that? What other manager has got those squeaky chickens into a training session? And like, how many times have you seen pictures go around of players in training sessions at England and actually looking like they enjoy it? And I think
that's the main thing. They look like they love it, don't they?
Yeah, and that's
Yeah,
where
but that goes back to our first podcast.
Do you know what? I'm really sorry. I want to butt in again. Did anyone else see that Jude Bellingham interview after the final?
Yes.
About him coming out, about what he said about Gareth Southgate, about him not just believe, like he gave him his. He was saying about him giving him his debut with England. The fact that he's always believed in him, and most importantly, is he has that relationship away from football. He's got a personal relationship with him where he said he can feel like he can contact him at any point, whenever he likes, give him a phone call and say, look, let's have a chat. And that's so important. It is absolutely vital. And I'm not being funny. Like, people look at that and go, right, well, it's one thing being a man manager. It's one thing getting it right on the pitch. But they go hand in hand. They go hand in hand. If you can't get the best out of your players on the pitch, you can't build that relationship off the pitch. They have to be able to trust you equally off it as well as on it. I think that sort of ties us in now to look a little bit about I don't know some of the tactical side of the tournament that we've just seen.
Well, that's Steve Holland. That's Steve Holland, isn't it? I mean, I think it's no secret that Gareth isn't as focused on the tactical side and the technical side as are a lot of historic managers we've had at England. I think his role, like we discussed, is he is that man manager. He gets the troops going. He understands them. And you can tell the boys love him. But I think when we talk about the tactics, we look to Steve Holland, the assistant manager, and I think that's who we look at. And I like him. I think he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, absolutely. But you've seen. I mean, I don't know what haven't we heard complaints about throughout this tournament. To be honest, I mean, for me, do you know what annoys me the most? For me, is substitutes. People saying like, he's not making his subs at the right time, or his subs aren't the right ones. For me, that's a complete myth. It's a complete myth. Look at the substitutes he's made. Watkins comes on, scores against the Netherlands. Palmer in the final. Tony, the effect that he had in the Slovakia game.
Every sub he made a difference.
Exactly that. And people will call for Palmer to start and stuff like that, like they were throughout the tournament. And I think he's made the correct decision in leaving him on the bench. And I'll tell you why, because I genuinely believe that he has a better impact coming off the bench than Saka does. And if you leave, if you start someone like Palmer and you leave Saka on the bench, you bring Saka off, and you're not going to have that injection of the 100 mile an hour that Palmer likes to play at. He likes to get the ball on the half turn in pockets and put the ball in dangerous areas and drag players away with him. You don't get that with Saka. They're two different types of players. I get that, but you get more of an impact, and I think that's where the tactical knowledge of Steve Holland and Gareth Southgate has really played a big part in getting us to the final, because you don't get that moment. A lot of people wanted Bellingham off in the Slovakia game. You don't get that moment. You don't get that special moment. You don't get that Kane header in extra time. You don't get the Watkins goal. You don't get the equaliser in the final. There's so many things that have played a massive part that he's done during his subs.
Yeah, people talk about his bravery as well for the subs, which I'm telling you now, if I'm 1-0 in a semi-final in the last minute and I need a goal, probably the last player I'm bringing off is Harry Kane, because he would come up like that. So
to be fair, he also took
talking to
Kane
me, I
off
think
for
that's pretty brave. But
to be fair, Kane didn't even play the last half an hour of the final.
exactly.
And albeit that was probably one of the best times during that game that I thought we actually played quite well, because it worked more effectively. The only issue, my only issue would be is that, like, this tournament has thrown what I would say is loads of curveballs, and whether that in the sense of every game it seemed to be something different. So if it's not the first few games with the press, it's then Trent in midfield who's not doing enough. And it's almost like every game there's been a curveball. And it's like how much of it is it didn't work, but we'll change it. Or how much of it is people overreacting and just expecting something totally different to what there is before, I think people also need to realise that this sort of football Southgate wants to play is pragmatic, not safe football, because there is elements of risk to it, but there's an element that he's not going to just go gung-ho or play in a certain way that, say, Guardiola will. It's a totally different style of football. So for people to kind of say that does kind of make you want to give the heads a wobble a bit, to be fair.
I think with that, just on that, I think that winds me up a lot, because if we were as attacking as everyone wants us to be, everyone would be going, we lose the ball all the time, we're getting counter-attacked all the time, this is happening all the time. Like, as a manager and as a coach in general, I just don't think you can ever win in terms of pleasing everyone. If he went and said, right, we're going to go and attack, and you saw it with Spain when we conceded, we went mad with trying to get the ball up top, and we lost it so many times, and we were under pressure a lot more than we were before that. And then everyone, like, I went out to go and watch the game, and everyone around's going, oh, we lost it, oh, we done this, and I'm thinking, well, hang on a minute, this is what you were all shouting for the entire tournament. They're doing it, and now you're shouting at us to keep the ball.
It's damned if you do, damned if you don't.
As soon as he gives in to the fans, as soon as he gives in to the fan, I'm not being funny. He's playing tournament football how it should be played. You play one game at a time, you get the result. If you're getting a result,
you win it. Just win it.
Who cares? Who cares how you get the result, etc. But if he rips up something that's worked for him in the past, that again I would say has worked for him again in getting us to another final, if he rips that up and goes gung-ho, attacking football, we get hit on the break, right? By, let's say Spain, for example, right? You go gun-ho, you want to play high up the pitch, you're going to get caught in behind. Yamal and Nat Williams are going to be on their bikes in behind, ball over the top, you're conceding. That's the problem you're going to have. And it doesn't matter whether you're playing a team like that or whether you're playing a Ukraine with Mudryk running in behind. You're going to have players that are going to be able to exploit that. If that doesn't work and he plays the way the fans want to, which is, that's the way that I get the fans want to see us play, is front foot in their half, all right, and, high line, play as close to their goal as possible. That's sort of the scenario that I think a lot of people are wanting to see, right? And that's the issue. If you go and do that and it doesn't work, we end up getting knocked out. People end up going, why have you changed? Or why have you done this? Why have you done that? Well, hang on a minute. You was all calling for it. Now he's done it. It's not worked. What do you want him to do? Go back to what he done? Because, like you've said already, he can't win either way.
To be fair,
And this is a thing. I commend him so much for sticking to what he knows, trusting and believing himself and his players, and blocking out everything else around him. Because ultimately, that is what has brought us to be once again successful. And I know we haven't won anything yet, but it could have easily gone either way. In both them finals, it was so 50-50, and it just come down to individual errors, and at the end of the day, that can't be helped.
Rice puts that header somewhere else, mid-level, rather than at head height. There's,
Yeah.
But you
King,
also
It's a game of what
on your
ifs.
point, King.
But you also look at it, and if you see the way that last goal was conceded, there was so many individual errors. But it's almost like if we would have just played the football that we had before, and we probably didn't go as attacking when it was 1-1. Like, I thought we would have been in a very comfortable position, because I remember the way the goal happened. Because the issue is that Spain were very good in that game of finding pockets of space in between what would be our defensive midfielders and our back line. And that's actually how the final goal came about, because they both kind of jumped. So the defensive midfielder jumped, so it left the space, and they just had to play out wide. And albeit the cross could have been prevented or actually stopped when it got into the box, there's also an element of but it's decision making in the day. And as we referred to on one of our other pods, that actually it's times like that where the decision making is key, and actually sometimes it is down to the players, but either way, I think Southgate done really
here's
well.
a little thought for you. If you could drag any manager into the job right now, who would it be, and what would you rate Gareth Southgate's tenure out of 10?
I just want to add before we go on to it. On Twitter, before the tournament, how many times did we go, or did we see Trent in midfield? Has to be Trent in midfield.
Yeah.
First 2 games, Trent's in midfield. How many times after the first, second game, what is Southgate doing? Why is Trent in midfield? Should never be in midfield. It's like going back to Carl's point earlier and Keane's point. That's like, it's that thing of we want something to happen, we do it, and now it's Southgate's fault that we're trying and stuff. And I think Declan Rice said it. Could be wrong, could be someone else, but he said what are fans expecting? It's been 3 games of Trent midfield. What, they wanted it, and now they've got it. They've won it back.
Issue is such a pressure cooker job that it's a pressure cooker job at the end of the day, and you're never going to get things absolutely 110% spot on. That unfortunately that is just one of the downsides of the job. It's always like, if you get it right, you're a hero, and if you don't get it right, you're a villain. Do you know what I mean? So it is one of those things, and it is a hard job to do. So I do commend Southgate on just sticking to his guns when needed.
Okay, let's answer Keane's question.
I would like to see Eddie Howe in the job. I think he's good at building a culture, looking at what he's done Newcastle and Bournemouth, especially when he took them up. Bit of a similar Southgate story, so I think that'd be good. And I'm going to say a solid 8 out of 10.
I also think Eddie Howe. I think he's proved himself to kind of carry that culture building philosophy on with England, because he's done it. He did it when he took over Newcastle. Newcastle were bottom of that Premier League table when he took over. Everyone was saying that, are they going to get relegated? And all of that talk. And he fought through it. He stuck with what he needed to do, and then they were playing Champions League football under him. And I know, he's probably, you wouldn't look at him and say the best manager in the Premier League, but definitely up there. And Gareth Southgate, I actually think it's gutting that we didn't win that Euros. I think that would have just been absolutely brilliant. It just felt like the right time. But yeah, I'm going to go 9.5, purely because we just didn't get anything to show for it, which is so
Didn't
disappointing.
get over the line, yeah.
Yeah, if we got that, I'd 10 out of 10, like best one yet.
Absolutely.
Yeah, realistically, I think Potter will come in, but in an ideal world, I'd say Eddie Howe, but I think it'll be Potter. He's not in a job, and I just think he's the best England manager out of a job. I think it'll realistically him or Lampard, but I want it to be Eddie Howe, and I'm on the same as Luke. 10 out of 10 if we won the Euros, but I'll go 9 because I'm not a half geezer like that, Luke.
All in or all out.
I like my old numbers.
I like you boys. I think I'm Team Eddie Howe. I think he would follow the same sort of pattern as Gareth Southgate, and he's a more mild-mannered manager. We don't need an ego. We don't need a superstar, because I think that has been proven to not work for us. And I think we need somebody who's going to totally appreciate what Gareth has done and not go in and try and make it their own in terms of
Reinvent
new.
the wheel, basically.
Yeah, I think you've got to make it your own, but not divert so far from what Southgate has done, because it is so amazing what he's done. For me, if I was to rate it, I think you boys have covered a lot of the bases. It is a 10 out of 10 if we win anything there. And I think, because for me, one of the key points I look at, well, there's two key points, is what's also happened off the pitch, the way he's transformed everything off the pitch, but also what he inherited. Because we sit here and we neglect the fact that we got knocked out by Iceland in 2016. That was what prompted really his appointment. He did not come into a team that were getting anywhere near the quarterfinals, let alone the final of a
You look at the squad we had in
competition.
2018 as well.
Well,
Like
technically,
Dyer and Henderson in midfield.
I was going to say, you got Bertrand on, I saw
Yeah.
a squad comparison. I think BBC
Dyer,
squad.
Henderson, Bertrand. I think we had Cahill. Go on then, James. Finish it off.
And for me, for that reason, I think it would be a 9.5, just like Luke, because I think it was such a transformation. It was just that one little bit that we wanted extra, and my God, I was wishing it for him more than anybody else, for him. But yeah, 9.5. Keno?
And
Go.
manager? You didn't? Did you say
Eddie
that?
Howe.
Eddie
Yeah,
Howe.
Eddie
Howe. Yeah. So you guys have said Eddie Howe. I know in an ideal world he would be the perfect manager to come in and replace him. But I absolutely echo everything you've said there, James, in terms of you need someone that's not going to come in and divert it too much, not going to be an ego, knows exactly what they're going to be coming in to deal with. And on that, I'd rate the tenure a 9.5, and I'm going to go different and agree with what you've said, James, which is why I'm going to say Carsley. I'm going to go out there and say Carsley, because mainly for the fact that the most successful England managers of recent history have come from our under-21s. So they know what they're coming in to deal with. And, he's someone that would have learned a lot off Southgate.
they also understand the England DNA as well, which would work in the favour of the FA as well.
Yeah, I think what's important is I think a lot of people want an English manager, and obviously Lee Carsley isn't English, but I think one of the big things about Gareth is you felt connected to him. You felt like he built that bond because he was a fan just like the rest of us, because he was English. So I think that might be a key factor that the FA need to consider.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree with you. But yeah, like I said, I just think, Carsley, he would have learned a lot learning off of Southgate. And like I say, he's the most successful managers we've had in recent history are the ones that have come through our youth. And, I wouldn't be against giving him a 2-year and seeing how he does at the World Cup.
There's two stories in my head now that I think I'd just like to sort of touch upon before we wrap up, which I think summarise a lot of what Gareth Southgate was about. Now, number one is quite a widely known one, is that when you were at the England camps and things, and when you were at St George's Park, the players from the men's team ate before everyone else, and they were on the pitch. And if they were on the pitch, the women's team weren't allowed to go out onto any of the pitches, and no other staff. The women's team, they couldn't eat first. It was only the England men's team could eat first. And Gareth went in and he changed that. And he said, everyone eats together, staff, players, men's team, women's team, whoever you are, you eat together, you can come onto the pitches at the same time. And that was one of the things he was about. And he was the FA for all. And he was for all, definitely. He represented everyone. And I think that was one of his huge, huge positives. And another one, which is less widely known, is a story my boss told me at the FA. And she said he came into Wembley to do his press conference before this Euros. And he came upstairs to the canteen, and there's hundreds of people in the canteen, hundreds, because it's the London FA and the National FA based in there. And they said he went round and he shook hands and he spoke to every single person. You know, he was ahead of a big pressure situation, but he went round and he made every single person feel important. And he's got arguably one of the biggest jobs in the world, and he still took time for everybody else. And I think the players love him. Us as fans have loved him. Certainly us boys have loved him even more than most. And
Absolutely.
I think, you know, the FA clearly loved him because they wanted to keep him on. And that is one of the reasons why he was so successful, is because at the end of the day, he was a human and people liked him because he gave respect. And I think we'll do the usual and we'll leave you with a quote. And it's only right to leave you with a Gareth quote. Go on.
Can I throw a quote in instead, James?
Go on, go for it.
We can do
Something
two.
We'll do
I
two.
Quotes of the day.
Well, I spotted this, and you know what? I really agree with it, and it's taken from Jake Humphrey, and he's spoken about Gareth Southgate, and he said, knowing when to walk away is wisdom, being able to be is courage, and walking away with grace and your head held high is dignity. And I think that pretty much sums up what's happened at the moment.
That's huge. That is huge. And I think, yeah, he is leaving with his head held high. And I think we all agree that. And the one quote I want to share from him, from the man himself, was he said, I don't believe in fairy tales, but I believe in dreams. And I think that's a huge, huge message, that if you can dream it, you can do it, and you can believe that. It doesn't have to be make-believe. It doesn't have to be unrealistic. But if you can dream it and you're confident enough to speak it out into the world and go and chase it down, just as he did, you might just have a chance. But thank you very much for listening. On behalf of us and behalf of the country, thank you, Gareth Southgate.